There are huge concerns about the volunteer driver programs in Minnesota right now. The volunteer drivers are under attack in many ways. A few years ago, the IRS realized that volunteer drivers were often collecting more than the charitable mileage reimbursement rate of 14 cents a mile. 14 cents is a ridiculous amount of money for volunteers to receive for driving. Um, so many nonprofits, including Faith in Action, provide more than 14 cents. But if volunteers receive more than the 14-cent rate, then that's considered income by the IRS and it is taxable. And volunteer drivers are now receiving 1099s for their income, their driving income. Once that happened, the insurance industry realized that if drivers are receiving income, they must be commercial drivers. So, volunteer drivers are under siege from their insurance providers in many cases, asking them to take out additional insurance coverage for commercial driving. And many volunteers don't feel that they need to pay that extra expense to provide volunteer services. So it's driving many volunteer drivers away from providing services that they love to provide and to help their communities. The Minnesota legislature didn't help things in 2015 when they created some legislation surrounding the taxi and commercial driver situation with Lyft and Uber and similar companies. It scooped up the volunteer driver programs in the wording of that legislation and made it very confusing. So there are some efforts currently being made at the state level to adopt some legislation that defines what a volunteer driver is as different from a commercial driver, as different from a Lyft or Uber type driver or a taxi driver. And in doing so, then would link them to Good Samaritan laws currently on the books and hopefully provide them a cushion of protection from needing additional insurance coverage. Most volunteer driver programs like Faith in Action already provide them with liability insurance and excess auto insurance, so they really should not need to have any other kind of a policy. But we know that between the 1099, between receiving that 1099 for additional income and then being questioned by insurance about the coverage that they need to drive as a volunteer, it's driven a number of volunteers away from doing what they love to do. And our rural communities don't have transit, we don't have busing, we don't even have a taxi service in Cass County. So if a person living at home, maybe alone, can't drive, if their family members are working, if they can't get away to take them to an appointment, they really have no other alternative. They have no other way to get to an appointment. Our Faith in Action for Cass County program is the only program in Cass County right now during the COVID concerns that can provide transportation for folks to help them get where they need to go. So in rural Minnesota, volunteer drivers are a lifeline.